Okay,
on the computer itself. Yes.
So the housekeeping is mute yourself.
Yep.
The other one is questions.
We're really excited to hear about this, and please record everything you say. It's important. Thank you.
I started the recording.
All right. So hello, everyone. My name is Michel Frank. I'm the president of the Luxembourg American Chamber of Commerce. And welcome Amber Margarita of the Space Smiths, principal at the Architectural Office Space Smiths in New York City. I know Amber well. I'm working with her on a daily basis. These days, more on a remotely. But when we were in the office, I was sitting across the desk from her, so we have very much knowledge of each other's capabilities and passions. And I've worked with her for over 10 years already. And Amber has become a principal at the architectural firm quite a few years ago, has won numerous awards, and was recently nominated to the HIP award, which recognizes a lot of honoring people, honoring industry people. And that is a very rare occurrence that people in the industry are so recognized. And Amber focuses a lot on workspace management, workspace design for Space Smiths. She's working a lot on projects in New York City and overseas, and working for private and institutional clients. Space management and space organization is a key knowledge and interest of her. The other thing that is really of interest to Amber is how people collaborate and how they focus on making a space function better and making a better world. To that effect, she is our in-house specialist on how to organize COVID safe or COVID-19 workspace. And she's going to tell us all about the workspace strategy that various companies or all companies can implement in order to create a safe environment and also welcome the staff back to the offices. A few housekeeping questions or issues. If you could all mute yourself, and at the end of the presentation, we will have question and answers that Amber is going to be answering. And the presentation is recorded, and we'll be able to share it on our websites. And Amber, thank you very much for joining us, and look forward to hearing all the knowledge you can share with us. So take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Michel. So we'll start off with what we know, which every day changes a little bit with our science, which is good. People are making big moves. But what we know from the CDC in return, this presentation is going to be about returning to your existing office and what are things that you can do at a low cost and to create some awareness about all of the things that might impact your employee health and safety. So what we know from the CDC is to conduct a space hazard assessment, meaning analyze your space for hazards. And that's really what this presentation is about, analyzing your existing space and what you can do. Conduct daily health checks. So this can take place in the form of 4 daily questions that you ask your employees. Have you been in contact with anybody that has COVID? Have you been in any of these places with high COVID risk? A series of several questions that are daily health checks, temperature checks, even though now we know that some people do not show temperature when they are carrying COVID-19. Wearing face coverings. So face coverings, full face covering, wrap under the chin. This weekend I saw somebody that had made their own face covering, and it was a little triangle hanging from a string. Those are not acceptable. Implement firm-wide social distancing policies. So make sure that these policies are written somewhere. Make sure people have read your policies. Make sure people sign that they've read and that they will comply. Building ventilation, we know it's a disease that is spread through the air, comes into our mouths, eyes, and goes down into our lungs and body. So building ventilation in indoor environments is extremely important. So we'll talk about air filtration and purification a little bit today. And then improving cleaning methods and cleaning frequency, also very important. And you want to do cleaning in several ways. You want to have the building staff or your maintenance company clean. You also want to provide wipes and other equipment for staff to clean at will. One major thing is different people have different tolerances. So you're going to have people who are going to want to clean every 15 minutes and others who are going to be fine with the cleaning staff coming through. We've separated responsibilities or what needs to happen in these three buckets. There's things for human resources or operations staff, facilities and building operations, and then there's a design component or a redesign component. So we'll start off with the human resources bucket. And the way we see this is the human resources team is really responsible for developing these policies for enhanced cleaning, any changes to workplace design, any new HR policies. And one of the most important things is to communicate these policies effectively. Have a meeting, have an all hands on deck meeting, have several all hands on deck meetings to communicate these. Have people read the protocols, have people sign that they understand these safety protocols, and communicate them via email, in person, via meetings, also in the space with signage. One thing I want to say about human resources is this is a great opportunity to integrate all those three buckets, meaning those three people who in the past might not have talked within a corporation very often. The human resources, the building operations, your real estate team, your design, all of that will make for successful real estate, efficient real estate spaces. Understanding which employees need to come back to the physical office and when. You might all already have people who are coming back in the office intermittently. So really understanding that you can do that by polling people, having quick pulse surveys, 5 questions or less, understanding who needs to come back and why, and then providing the safety needed for them to do that, the protocols needed for them to come back. And we'll talk about that, and I have an example of that. And then also we've been working from home for a long time. Some companies have given employees a stipend to get a comfortable task chair, to get a large monitor, perhaps a new computer, cameras. So understand what people need to work at home effectively. It might be software. Just that's what the surveys are for, compiling all this information. And then perhaps you can also develop rotating schedules. So HR would be responsible for these rotating schedules of, okay, this is team A, this is team B. Team A comes in Monday, Tuesday. Team B comes in Thursday, Friday. Wednesday is a deep clean day, for example. And then visitor management. Who needs to come into your office and why? And really HR would put out these queries and then understand what the staff is saying. What we see as a way to accomplish the things that I just talked about is developing specialized questionnaires to collect the information we discussed. And then developing these firm-wide, company-wide protocols, and then really working with the change management messaging. So this could be a professional like us, or human resources could do it internally. It could be the CEO, COO, depending on the company size and staff level. It could be internal, or consultants could be hired to help with these procedures, protocols, questionnaires, and the change management messaging. This is the next slide, which is about building operations. So meaning everybody who is focusing on contacting all of the people who work in the building, focusing on contacting the cleaning staff, all of your point person for operations. The picture on the upper left is a building lobby. And the idea is that your workspace is not only once you get up to your workspace also includes a building lobby. So you're going to want to understand and get a copy of the building safety protocols. They might want people who are going to the 22nd floor to use a certain revolving door or to use a certain door, or they might want to have all traffic going in one place and out another, etc. So you're going to want to understand that. Are you going to be using automatic doors? Are you going to be asked when the building is getting up to capacity? Are you going to be asked to only show up at, to stagger your entry times? All of these are things that you need to discuss with your building. Is there enhanced more air being pushed into the elevator cabs to flush the air, generate new air, clean air in the cabs between trips? Or are they limiting an elevator that, let's say, was for 8 people is now for 2 to 3 people, for example? And then are they adhering to the 6-foot rule everywhere? Are there floor markings? So building operations is really responsible for the things here, developing and rolling out protocols for the temperature scan or viral screenings once rapid testing becomes more reliable and available, evaluating air distribution and filtration. Most buildings have ducted airs with air handling units. So you're going to want to make sure that the filters are changed on a regular maintenance schedule, and the MERV filter, there are MERV filters, that's a brand, and you're going to want them to be, if possible, 13 or higher. This is what hospitals use to clean the air. They catch very small particulate matter from getting pushed and blown into the airstream in a workplace. And then you're going to want to also develop and post signage to ensure that the strategies that we've just discussed are actually being communicated and are easy to follow. This also helps people feel like the space is really taking care of their safety, and the people involved in the operations really care about their safety as well. So building operations also is responsible for developing enhanced cleaning protocols with an emphasis on high touch surfaces. So high touch surface inventory might include things like door hardware, knobs, levers, push buttons in a public space like an elevator. It might include the water dispenser in the pantry, the button or the knob for the water dispenser, the refrigerator handles, all of these common things that are high touch surfaces. And then in a personal workstation, it might be the keyboard, the phone, people's cell phones. So these are the things that are going to want to be cleaned more often. So having an inventory and creating awareness and a cleaning schedule around those things helps keep them clean and safe. So providing things like tissues, no-touch trash cans. You can also just take trash cans and leave them uncovered so people can just toss recycling and trash in them. Hand wipes and paper towels are more sanitary than automatic hand dryers. Automatic hand dryers tend to just, very few of them actually have filters in them, and they tend to just blow dirty air around and onto your hands. Meanwhile, if you use paper towels, you are actually drying your hands with a clean sanitary object, and you are also eliminating germs from your hands as well. And then maintaining stocks of PPE. So some people might want to give out masks and wipes and all of these things we've mentioned. And finally, design. These are questions to ask yourself looking at a floor plan or even walking around the space with a tape measure. Are there 6 feet between people? How do you de-densify or make the conference rooms available to less people? Can you reconfigure seats? Placing signage is very important. Beautifully designed and encouraging signage is always best. And then there's also occupancy technology. There's sensors that you can place under chairs, in room, at the doors in a room, in the middle of a room, that basically tell you if a room or an area is occupied. If an area is occupied to its maximum capacity, it tells people, okay, I'm actively going to avoid this space. So if you have more than one office, or if you're a real estate person for a large corporation that has many offices in the US and around the globe, you're going to want to review all your projects that are in design phases. And this is a perfect opportunity to just reevaluate if you have a very dense open office floor plate. How do you provide adequate space for people there? Now that people are going to continue to have many, many online Zoom meetings, are you providing space for these meetings to take place behind closed doors, even if it's in a small focus or telephone room? So reviewing your portfolio and identifying opportunities where you can just have these strategies applied holistically to your entire portfolio, all of your properties. Identifying the occupancy per floor plate. So how many seats do you have? What is that total occupancy? And then who needs to compare that to the HR questionnaires? How many people say they'd like to come in, even if it's part-time, 2 days, 1 day, sometimes, and seeing if you have space for that. Assessing the density is what that is. And then determining the sequencing, the work rotation, the signage. Again, I can't stress signage enough. Facility flow and circulation. So if you have really tight corridors, it would be ideal if you could develop a one-way circulation. I'm sure you've all experienced this in the supermarket, for example, where they have arrows. You might want to think of something similar in your office space. And then modifying individual workstations. So I'll get into that a little bit here. This looks like a technical drawing. It is a furniture floor plan of a building, and all of the dots represent a person or a seat. All of the pink dots represent people sitting at workstations in an open office area. All of the orange dots represent people sitting in an enclosed meeting room. Blue up here is the reception area. And then we have what we call huddle rooms. So these are more informal, casual seating spaces. This is a two-seater sofa and a lounge chair. And then we have a pantry here that seats 8. And we have some focus rooms. So these little rooms down here might be great for Zoom calls, for example. You can shut that sliding door. So I'm using this to show you that this space and the tally on the left holds 133 people before COVID. After COVID and social distancing, even if people are wearing their mask, we encourage people to wear their masks in the workplace all day long. If they're sitting in an open work area or any room where there's more than just themselves, the capacity drops to 66. So I'll go back. That's 133 to 66. And the logic behind this is these dashed circles. They indicate a 6-foot radius, assuming that the person is standing or sitting in the middle of that 6-foot radius. So this is the elevator here with this arrow. Somebody might walk out and the reception is now for one person and one receptionist. You're going to want to have these red sanitizer stations. They could be sanitizer and wipes. The sanitizer stations should be touchless. They have foot-operated ones now, or they have sensor-operated sanitizer stations, which are wonderful. Then in the open office area, you'll notice that the title of this sheet is Group A, meaning that these are the people that can come in on the Group A schedule. So they are staggered. So every other seat has somebody, and you can see that even though this is a very dense floor plate, the 6-foot radius still works with this floor plate. You don't want to have people across from each other. You want to have them staggered. And then meeting rooms, it's the same thing. This meeting room is now, it went from being for 8 people to being 6 people. This large meeting room also reducing capacity by more than 50%. All of this closed rooms are now at capacity for 1 person. This is Group B. You'll see that these are just happen to be different seats. So people should still be assigned to their seat. If they're not, you need to do very, very thorough cleaning of that station or allow more than 24 hours between uses. So it would mean that that seat would have to be empty for 24 hours, which doesn't always work if someone leaves at 6 p.m. and then the other person wants to come in at 9 a.m. So yeah, this is just showing some examples of signage on the upper right. We would encourage you to distribute your pantries. So if you can add other points for people to put their lunch or have an automatic water dispenser, that would be better so that you reduce one high touch area. And then adding panels between desks and at the reception area as well, of course. So those are the plans, and this is the end of the presentation where what we suggest is these 4 phases. First of all, you assess your current space, you assess your needs, you prepare your remote survey, you have your, you communicate with your landlord, you understand what your space demands are. Phase 2, you plan, you have a customized plan solutions based on what you learned from what you assessed in phase 1. Phase 3, you document this plan, who is doing what. This might be drawings, this might be purchase orders, etc. And then phase 4, you implement. You organize an execution team. You have change management meetings with your staff. You communicate it, and you execute according to a schedule. These are some helpful links. And I believe that's it. That is our presentation for today.
Well, thank you very much, Amber. That is great. And listening to your presentation, I mean, I had a few questions to you, and I encourage the other participants or guests to ask as many questions as they want. My first question is, since we started talking about the re-entry about, let's say, a month and a half ago, how much have the staff been returning back to the office? I know that some offices are more remote, some offices have had the interest of sending people back to the office. How is that percentage, or how is that increasing over the last few weeks or months?
So I think we're going to start to see a lot more people coming back in September, so right after Labor Day. However, long term, many companies are actually discussing continuing remote work and work in the office. So giving people the option. And most people, when you ask them, they do want to come back to the office, but not full time. So this might look like something like 2 days in the office, 3 days at home, or some combination of a more balanced work from anywhere, really. It doesn't have to be work from home, but work from anywhere, and then days that they are in the office. Reasons to come into the office are really different for different people, but what we're seeing is that there are certain types of collaboration, like iterative collaboration that doesn't involve reviews. Collaboration that revolves creating new ideas is really more impactful in person. There are different ways of doing that, but online as well, but we're seeing that as a major request for people coming back into offices.
What do we think this will do to the real estate market in New York?
So there's already an increase in people subleasing their space. So meaning they have a lease, they're giving up space, they're subleasing to smaller companies. But then again, we're also seeing people sign leases for, extremely exorbitant prices, like $120 a square foot in the meatpacking district for, headquarters for a technology company, or Facebook's deal at the Moynihan station. So I think architecture will always, and real estate for corporations will always be iconic, or a symbolic, and we will always need places to gather and show our clients that we have a stake in the ground and are a legitimate company. I think a lot of tech companies are challenging that notion, especially hugely successful tech companies are challenging that notion. But it is I see that real estate and headquarters staying. Also, more increase in satellite offices. So offices that are actually closer to where your staff live, and smaller offices. And that might mean a membership in co-working, but people are still tentative about that.
Thank you.
I had another surprise. You mentioned that you thought that paper towels were more hygienic or better than the air blower. I
don't think
I was surprised about it.
There are many scientific studies that also have proven this.
Yeah.
It's also part of the
that
well
is a
building
surprise.
standard. Mhm.
I was surprised too, actually. I was wondering, so do you do consulting for like places? Do you actually go on site and analyze how they can implement these procedures, or do you just like virtually do a tour? How does this work? Because I'm sure that a lot of companies don't really know how to do this on their own, even if they read guidelines. It's like hard to have that vision if you're not like an architect or a designer. So I was just wondering if you could give us some insight.
Yes, absolutely. So we help with formulating surveys, questionnaires, analyzing what your staff is saying, also analyzing your space, walking through your space, providing a list of recommendations, finding the vendors that can supply things like separation. It all depends on what you want to do. These are all recommendations, and it depends on how you want to do these things.
Amber,
But-
is Spacesmith also helping the schools with, organizing, or no? Is it just corporate?
No, we have several university clients who are building buildings right now that won't be finished for a year or two. So they're not asking us to make any modifications to our design based on this knowledge. We have given them this knowledge. They are kicking the can down the line or down the road, I think, or maybe they're implementing something and I'm not aware. But we are not currently helping any schools that are reopening immediately.
Is your target audience the building management companies to get into the various offices that need these services? Because I work in One New York Plaza, right, as well, right? We have people participating in all the building meetings, et cetera, right? But I would think that that's a pretty good target place to find all of the companies that, have needs, and once the building requirements are set, it's a good target audience to find, I would think.
Yeah, we usually work with the companies might have a facilities director of facilities, maybe a CFO, an operations manager. Sometimes it's the CEO, sometimes it's the CEO's assistant. All different people reach out to us. In terms of building management, we work with building landlords a lot. So we're working with some landlords in New York City to develop these building re-entry plans, what happens in all of the building's common areas, etc.
Good, thank you.
You mentioned that when Tony's question about schools and that you're working with universities about future plans and they haven't elected to make tweaks to their plans yet. What about on commercial real estate side? Have you seen anybody thinking not kicking the can down the road, but making changes now for what may happen in the future, and people's comfort level and ability to be nimble should something like this happen again, or when something like this happens again?
Yes. So we are working on a building renovation right now for a workplace, and we are replanning. We had developed standards for this client for a project, for a previous project, and we thought we would apply the same standards and these are your meeting rooms, these are your focus rooms, these are your workstations, right? And just roll this kit of parts to standardize all of this client's real estate, right? And so we've had to rethink what those standards look like, allowing more space per person, allowing more rooms for people to have these Zoom calls on a laptop or on a fixed computer, small room for one person, right? It doesn't have to be big. Looking at the media, looking at the communal spaces, trying to add more outdoor space, even if it's an interior renovation. How do we do that? Blowing out some windows, creating a terrace, just starting to think about these things and suggesting them to clients, because it will also make people want to come back to the workspace, right? And then I will say that for workstations, let's say a workstation is not going to go away, an open work area is not going to go away. We have planned 6x6 space for everybody on move-in day. Let's say COVID is still in the air, and 6x6 foot for everybody. And then on day 2, these workstations can be reconfigured very easily, like a kit of parts. Roll a heavy piece of storage out. You will need help with that. And then add a chair, add a computer, but all of the power, data, desk space, alternate storage is there. So we are, and it fits in the footprint, which is the most important thing. You don't have to move anything that's already pre-wired with power and data. So we are developing these strategies right now.
One other thing, which sounds short-term and long-term, so smart. My big hang-up about, or one of the big hang-ups is the time that you would need to put aside to ride elevators to fill to fill a 50-story building. And I saw your diagrams of, 2 people facing the wall, but just the time on the clock, how are people coming up with ways to create a new schedule?
Yeah. It would have to be timed entry. A lot of things that are being implemented, not every building, not many buildings have this in New York, but this is standard in places like South Korea, for example, where you get a QR code to your phone if you're visiting this building, or even if you're an employee. To that QR code, you can say, as part of downloading that QR code, you have to fill in your personal information, which functions for contact tracing. So you can, name, email, phone number, you answer a few health questions, then you can access the QR code that allows you touchless access to the elevators and into the building through the turnstiles. It could also tell you, based on building occupancy, you need to come in today at 9:20. Wow,
amazing.
But it's a major investment for landlords. So I think that real estate is always slow to adapt because it's infrastructure, right? It is built, wired, there's unions, there's a lot of labor, there's parts. So these are things that if a landlord is building a building right now, I really hope that they've thought of.
Amber, your building that you're in, what are they doing?
At One New York Plaza?
Yes.
Well, the building has floor signage, markings, reduced elevator capacity. You still have to check in with a security guard if you're not an employee, if you're a visitor. They put up some plexiglass shields and like a barricade. I forget what they're called, but they have the little vertical post and the ribbon that you tie to each post, so that you stand away from the security guard 6 feet away. They have an area markings on the floor for you to wait. If there's a queue for the elevator, you have to wait in another area. Hand sanitizer stations everywhere, automatic hand sanitizer everywhere.
If I could add, since I've been going there once a week over the last months and a half, 4 people per elevator. They have a lot of markings on the floor. Every revolving door is dedicated to one elevator bank. So you're supposed to go to your elevator bank to your entrance. Then only the back doors are open for card entry. In the elevator, there's a huge sign that says only 4 people allowed in the elevator. In the entrance, there's floor markings of where you're supposed to wait 6 feet apart, assuming that you have a big conference. But I have to tell you, I've been going once a week. On my entire floor, I have been the only one in the office on the entire floor. 2 or 3 other people come to the office to pick up a set of drawings here or there. I have not been in the elevator ever with a second person. There was once one person jumped in and I just said, no, I jumped out. But overall, it's very, very, very sporadically occupied. I've seen more activity over the last few times, but people really not really using the space. But the other item that the building is doing is that the space is cleaned every single day. The cleaning lady comes in, cleans all the surfaces as though the building were, or the spaces were fully occupied. That is something that the real estate is really focusing on, because, and real estate companies such as Brookfield, let's say, which is our tenant, our landlord, their staff is fully occupying their spaces. They have rotation. They, of course, they're not occupying the space fully, but all their staff is occupying their spaces, because what Amber rightfully said is that the biggest risk, or the biggest unknown so far, is how does COVID virus travel through the air conditioning systems? That is really an unknown, and not really fully tested. Yes, the idea is great to be able to install better filtration, but the filtration devices are so, I would say, dense, the air conditioning equipment would not be able to function thoroughly. So it is still a moving target. Yes, the filter should be installed on a regular basis, but to improve the filters or make them more resistant is difficult to achieve, just because of the existing air conditioning. Especially our building, for instance, the air conditioning dates back to, I would say, the 70s or 80s, which is not to current desires. So how much the air conditioning is going to, how much the COVID virus is going to travel in or affect the real estate is difficult to assess for now. But it is a moving target, and I'm sure that Amber will be able to, in a few weeks, tell us more about how that is developing.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot of people that we know that are going back in September. The more company that we talk to, most of them are saying the new year. That's what a lot of people are saying. So they're waiting to see the flu season and all. And so it should be really interesting to see what happens, you know? It's just, and also for some of the companies that the people that we talk to, they say that it's very expensive for them to make these kind of changes. And I think that's part of the reason why some of them are also waiting, you know? What do you think of that?
I don't think that some of these changes are very expensive at all. Developing a strategy for who comes in, you know, to have, let's say, 25% of your office occupied at once, buying a few touchless accessories, putting out paper towels, leaving doors open so people don't have to touch doors. I really don't think it has to be expensive to make these modifications to your workplace. Longer term modifications, air filters, or even standalone air purifiers are a few $100s, maybe $2,000 if you get top of the line equipment. So there are options for, you know, dividers between desks. They can be made out of cardboard for $50 a desk or $25 a desk, or you can go very high end for thousands of dollars for a divider. So there's always options, and at bare minimum, I don't think it's a huge expense. I do think it's a huge operating expense for some people to have enhanced cleaning, for example, and other things like that. Or if a landlord is running the elevators more often because of reduced capacity, then there's going to be an energy cost. So yeah, I think maintenance and energy might be much higher.
I guess we're also going back on all the environmentally friendly measures, because at some point in time, I know that some companies, including my former company, we used to have like mugs, and you didn't have paper towels everywhere. So I guess like people are probably like reverting back to the old days, just for like safety measures.
We're still suggesting that you bring your own mug, or the company gives everybody a branded mug, and that is your mug. or you bring in your own refillable water bottle. I do not want to go back to plastic plates and forks, and I don't care if they're compostable. I think that we shouldn't be doing that. The one exception is the hand dryers.
Yeah. Because of the reason you mentioned. Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, think about all the hand dryers like at airports and public restrooms. Don't use them. Don't stand next to somebody that's using it.
But it's so funny because, as Michelle pointed out, I thought the same thing. And I think everybody, when you don't touch anything, you always assume that, it's going to be cleaner than even having to touch the surface on which the paper towel is. So it's interesting.
There are some brands that have filters that filter the air before it is thrown onto your hands at high speed. I still wouldn't use those.
Okay. Really noted.
Melissa, you asked another question earlier of consulting for various entities or enterprises. A few weeks or a few months ago, Amber made a presentation to the Queen's Bureau of Consumer Affairs or something like that. I don't remember the name exactly.
Development Corporation.
Yeah. To talk about their retail spaces, how they can organize their sequence of being responsive towards customers. And also we consulted with a restaurant in New York City on making, designing a tent for the outdoors and all that. So there are a lot of consulting services, and we have worked with various of our clients who wanted to plan their re-entry.
And you mentioned restaurants, and that prompted kind of another question. I feel like cuisines are really hard, like the kitchen areas are really hard to space. And I was just wondering how that works, and even in companies that have canteens, I feel like it's as for them to be operational, you still need to have some kind of frequency. And if you're just open from 12 to 1 and you have to socially distance, you may not be able to serve enough meals. So I guess that kitchen areas may be more problematic.
In restaurants?
In restaurants and in office buildings where they serve food. I know that my former law firm had a kind of canteen where everybody used to go because the food was cheaper than outside, and that was the purpose of having it.
So what we're recommending for that kind of workplace canteen is that they set up shop maybe every other floor in the building with a limited number of meals. So people can actually use the stairs to get to them. They could reserve a meal and just pick up their bag the way you do at a Chopped or any other place. And in that sense, they're still using their catering kitchens, but they are distributing the food so that not everybody is going down to the cafe. They just have to go up or down a level to pick up their bag, for example.
I see.
Good idea.
Yeah, I didn't know how that would work out. So thank you. There's so many things to think about that I think you don't even think about until you kind of actually get there.
Yeah, it's all about distributing as opposed to, consolidating.
Yeah.
Which kind of flies in the face of how economies of scale. Everything worked because we sold more tickets, or we packed more people in, or it's completely opposite. Yeah.
Until the next one. Until we forget about this, hopefully. Well, this was great, Amber. Thank you very, very much. Great to see you, since I haven't seen you live for a long time. And thank you all for participating and for joining. And so there will be a YouTube video that is going to be available. So thank you, Tony, and thank you, Janet, for organizing, and thank you all for joining. And thank you, Andrew, Amber, for this.
Michelle, is it possible to share, Amber, is it possible to share your slides just in case any of our members would like to see that?
Yes.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay, well, of course, it'll be PDF, so if you don't mind sending that to us, that way we could do that.
Yeah,
Because we know that several of our members were not able to attend, so we could just send it to them, that they will have a chance to see it, and then recording.
all right.
Amber, thank you very much, and thank you, everyone. It was really great, lots to think about. My goodness, it's really scary in a way.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take care,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
All
Good
right, bye.
evening, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.